Yeah, we're going now. Right, once upon a time there was a bank robbery which took place in Sheffield City Centre. The men who were aged between 20 and 30 took £130,400 from NatWest Bank. The next day there would be an investigation as to how the men got into NatWest Bank and took the money. Suddenly it all started to get very tense for the workers and the customers who go to NatWest. They were shaky, not knowing what was going on. The next day the men were on the run. They headed towards London and Heathrow to board a plane to New York. The next day the police searched the premises and they went to speak to the staff. They gave the police their version of events. The next day the police carried on their investigation. Suddenly it was all starting to get really tense. The police were still on the the next day the police searched the premises and they went to speak to the staff and they gave the police their version of events. The next day the police carried on their investigation. Suddenly it was all starting to get really tense. The police were still on the manhunt. These men were on the run. Later that evening, the parents of one of the men asked them to turn themselves in. Later that evening, the men were on the run. Once more, they headed to the Philippines. Suddenly, these men were deported and were put back on a plane to England. This whole episode was not over yet. There was a dramatic twist. The men were making really personal remarks towards the staff on the plane. Suddenly, the men were starting to get they were really confrontational. The next day, they landed back in England, and they were told to go back to Sheffield. They were named as Dill O. Smith, Martin O. Adams, Judd O. Sullivan, Gary O. Phillips, Nathan Roberts from the Manor area, who were from the Manor area. They would face a life sentence behind bars. The men who they targeted NatWest for a couple of months. They tried to take money from NatWest a couple of weeks ago, but NatWest, it wasn't open, and they came back with what they wanted. The next day they arrived in court. The men arrived in court where they'd find out the sentencing of the men who were given their life sentence behind bars and the community service.
Yeah, well, yeah.
The next day they were behind bars. Later the evening, the staff at the NatWest they stepped up the security following the robbery at NatWest. The next day the staff they returned to work, but they were traumatised and felt scared following the events last week. The next day the staff they were trying to get on with the work they needed to do when suddenly there was a rude customer who was making really personal remarks. Suddenly this customer, they weren't winning it. Later that afternoon the security they escorted the customer out on NatWest. Are we okay? The next day the staff they received a phone call on the phone. Someone was trying to sell them something. So and it all started to get hectic in the branch. Later that evening, one of them the staff at NatWest, they went out for a birthday celebration. They tried to get rid of the frustration of the events that had been happening at work. The next day they went back to work and decided after thinking over that they were going to continue at NatWest and they would work and they'd go to cinema with their friends and watch Ride Along 2. The next day they went home and they settled down for the night. When in a twist there was they received a telephone call. Didn't answer the phone, not knowing who it was. Suddenly it rang again, and they answered the phone this time. Suddenly it started to get really heated, and obviously they didn't know what to do. And they reported this to the police. The police then investigated it and arrested the person who was making phone calls. Next day there was a protest in NatWest. There was a protest. They arrested the person who was making. There was a protest in NatWest. They were going out of business suddenly, and it all started to get very heated. The manager, who was named Johnson, he took the council to court and were trying to take NatWest out of business. Next day, council went to court and gave a version of events, and they don't think NatWest are good enough, ain't got enough money from the business. Manager, who's Gavin Johnson, he told court that it wasn't true what council was saying. He said his business were earning enough money for his business, and he went through the facts. Later that afternoon, judge gave council a life sentence in prison and urged him to pay back manager Gavin Johnson and to apologise to him trying to stop his business. Next day, Gavin Johnson and staff arrived to work when the man broke out of prison and came back to NatWest. Then it started to get really tense, and it was remarkable how these people had got out of prison. So the men boarded a plane to Athens. When the Greek authorities had arrested them and put them behind bars. But the men they just went past them, got on the plane, the next plane to New Zealand, Wellington. And then they were starting to be a nuisance for the New Zealand authorities, and then the men were behaving really disorderly. The parents, they were just living with them, with the way they were behaving. So the next day they had the police, they got their men, and they were re-arrested for this, and they were put behind bars where they needed to be. The next day the workers, they went out for a meal at Harvester, then they ate some food and they made their own way home, and then slowly they were some teenagers, they just followed them home. Slowly then it all started to get really scary for these people. They had to get in touch with their manager, and then he contacted police, and then suddenly they arrived on the scene, and then in a split second they just arrested the teenagers who were following these people home. The next day the workers, they arrived to work when they knew something was missing. They realised something had gone. They realised someone had broke into the store overnight. How could this have happened to the people? All of a sudden there was some clues. Suddenly the police, they arrived on the scene and investigated what had happened. Suddenly the police, they started the manhunt for these people and spotted some people on the run. And then all of a sudden they got the men, and then they put them in the police court. The end, Sam Jenkinson.